Right now, as you watch this, two wars are happening at the same time in the Middle East. One is being fought with missiles, warships, drones, and fighter jets. The other is being fought with headlines, viral videos, official statements, and public deception. And right at the center of both is one American warship, the USS Abraham Lincoln. Iran says it hit that carrier with missiles. Iran says it damaged the ship and forced it to retreat. The Pentagon says that never happened. The U.S. military says the missiles did not even come close. So what is the truth? Because this is not a small rumor buried in some corner of the internet. This is a direct claim about one of America's most powerful warships and the lives of roughly 5,500 American sailors on board. And when propaganda starts moving faster than facts, the truth becomes harder to find. That is why this matters. The USS Abraham Lincoln is a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier stretching more than 1,000 feet long, operating in the Arabian Sea as part of one of the most advanced naval formations in the world. According to Iran, that ship was struck. According to the United States, it was not. And behind those two competing claims is a larger conflict that has been expanding by the day. To understand how this story exploded, we have to go back to the beginning. On the 28th of February 2026, the United States and Israel launched a major military campaign against Iran. The Pentagon called it Operation Epic Fury. Reports from U.S. Central Command, along with coverage from CBS News, The New York Times, and Military Times, described it as the biggest American military operation in the Middle East since the Iraq War. The reason given was Iran's refusal to abandon its nuclear weapons program. The response was swift, coordinated, and massive. The USS Abraham Lincoln was at the center of that operation. Based out of San Diego, the carrier was deployed into the Arabian Sea and used as a primary strike platform. From its deck, FA-18 Super Hornets and F-35C Lightning jets were launched deep into Iranian territory. But the Lincoln was not alone. It was operating as the heart of Carrier Strike Group 3, supported by Carrier Air Wing 9, the guided missile destroyers USS Spruance and USS Michael Murphy, and multiple additional Arleigh Burke-class destroyers built specifically to detect and destroy incoming threats. That matters because Iran was not claiming it hit just any target. It was claiming it broke through one of the most heavily protected naval defense systems on Earth. Then, on March 1, the information war exploded. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps publicly claimed it had fired 4 ballistic missiles at the USS Abraham Lincoln and successfully struck the carrier. Soon after, dramatic videos flooded social media showing what looked like a burning aircraft carrier. Millions watched. Millions believed it. But the moment those images started spreading, the United States responded with a denial so direct that it turned this into something even bigger than a military dispute. It became a battle over reality itself. If you want the full truth, stay with me, because what happened next changed the entire story. As those videos spread across social media, confusion spread with them. For many people watching from a distance, the footage looked convincing. A massive carrier appeared to be engulfed in flames. The claim was simple and powerful. Iran had done what few nations could even dream of doing. It had struck a U.S. aircraft carrier, but within hours, U.S. Central Command pushed back hard. On its verified account, it posted a response that left no room for doubt. It said Iran's claim that it had struck the USS Abraham Lincoln with ballistic missiles was a lie. In all caps, the statement said the carrier was not hit and that the missiles launched did not even come close. It added that the Lincoln was still launching aircraft in support of ongoing operations. That statement quickly gained millions of views, but words alone were not enough. In an information war, visuals matter. So a few days later, on March 7, U.S. Central Command released fresh photographs of the USS Abraham Lincoln operating in the Arabian Sea. The images showed fighter jets launching from the flight deck and the carrier functioning as normal. The message was clear. Not only was the ship still afloat, it was still conducting combat operations. At the same time, the U.S. military accused Iran of changing its story. At first, Iranian sources claimed the Lincoln had been struck and severely damaged. Then, when those images showed the carrier still active, the narrative shifted. The new claim was that the ship had not been destroyed, but had instead withdrawn after facing Iranian missiles and drones. Again, the U.S. military denied that version as well. Then independent investigators stepped in. PolitiFact, one of the most recognized fact-checking organizations in the United States, examined the videos and public claims. On March 2, it rated the story that Iran had struck and damaged the USS Abraham Lincoln as pants on fire, its harshest rating for falsehood. According to its review, the ship shown in the video did not match the real carrier. Certain details were wrong. The aircraft shapes looked unrealistic. Important visual features did not line up with verified images of the Lincoln. Another fact-checking group, Lead Stories, tracked one of the viral clips even further back. It found that one of the most widely shared videos had actually appeared months earlier during another period of tension involving Iran and Israel. After closer analysis, the footage appeared to come from Arma 3, a military simulation video game that has repeatedly been used by internet accounts to spread fake war footage. The game's developer has even had to publicly address the problem. Experts pointed out something else that made the Iranian claim hard to believe. If an aircraft carrier had really been hit, thousands of sailors and nearby ships would have seen it. Such an event could not stay hidden. There would be eyewitness accounts, emergency signals, and visible signs from multiple sources. None of that appeared. But that did not mean the USS Abraham Lincoln was operating in safety. Far from it. Even though the missile strike story was debunked, real confrontations were happening around the carrier. And one confirmed incident involving an Iranian vessel showed just how dangerous the situation had already become. What happened next proved that the Abraham Lincoln was not a victim of fake destruction, but it was absolutely operating inside a very real and growing war zone. Even with the missile strike claims falling apart under scrutiny, the danger around the USS Abraham Lincoln remained very real. This was not a peaceful deployment. This was an active combat environment where a single wrong move could trigger lethal force within seconds. According to CBS News, which cited 2 U.S. officials briefed on the matter, one of the most serious encounters happened when an Iranian vessel moved dangerously close to the carrier strike group. The officials described a tense moment at sea in which U.S. forces viewed the approach as a serious threat. In response, an American naval vessel attempted to stop the Iranian ship. It used a Mark 45 naval gun, a powerful automated cannon mounted on the warship. Shots were fired, but according to the officials, they missed multiple times. It was not clear whether those rounds were intended as warning shots or a direct attempt to disable the vessel before it got any closer. Either way, the situation was escalating fast. Then the confrontation took another step. A helicopter armed with Hellfire missiles was launched. It moved into position and fired 2 missiles directly at the Iranian vessel. Both hit. The message was unmistakable. U.S. forces were prepared to use lethal force if they believed the carrier or the strike group was under threat. That encounter ended quickly, but it revealed just how narrow the margin for error had become in the waters around the Abraham Lincoln. This was not the first time the carrier had faced an active threat. Reuters had already reported that earlier in February, before Operation Epic Fury officially began, an Iranian Shahed 139 drone had aggressively approached the carrier in the Arabian Sea. That drone was intercepted by an American F-35 fighter jet and shot down before it could do any damage. No U.S. personnel were injured, and no American equipment was lost. But the incident showed that Iran was already testing the carrier's defenses before the wider operation even began. These episodes matter because they show the truth behind the headlines. No, the USS Abraham Lincoln was not confirmed, destroyed, or crippled. But yes, it was operating in a battle space where drones, naval vessels, and missile threats were all very real. This was not theater. It was not a symbolic deployment. It was a frontline combat role inside one of the most dangerous military confrontations in the region in years. And that wider conflict was growing rapidly. Operation Epic Fury was not limited to a few isolated airstrikes. It had become a sustained campaign on a huge scale. According to Defense Scoop, as the operation entered its second week, Iranian drone assaults had dropped by about 95%. U.S. officials presented that as proof that the campaign was successfully degrading Iranian capabilities. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the number of American strikes over Iran had reached its highest level yet. Admiral Brad Cooper of U.S. Central Command later stated that nearly 200 targets had been hit deep inside Iran in just 72 hours, including areas near Tehran. B-2 bombers reportedly dropped dozens of 2,000-pound penetrator bombs on deeply buried missile positions. At sea, the campaign was just as intense, and as new reports emerged about the damage inflicted on Iranian forces, it became clear that this war was far larger than one viral claim about a carrier. The battlefield was expanding, and the human cost was rising with it. As Operation Epic Fury intensified, the scale of the campaign became impossible to ignore. This was no longer a limited show of force or a short burst of retaliation. It was a full military offensive stretching across land, sea, and air. According to Military Times, the United States had already destroyed more than 60 Iranian warships during the operation. Admiral Brad Cooper later stated that U.S. forces had taken out the last of Iran's Soleimani-class warships, eliminating an entire class of guided missile catamaran vessels. These ships were considered some of the most advanced in Iran's naval fleet, making their destruction a major blow to Tehran's maritime capabilities. In the air, the operation was relentless. American bombers and carrier-based aircraft were striking targets deep inside Iranian territory, including missile launch sites, drone infrastructure, and key military positions. U.S. officials described the operation as one that was increasing in pace rather than slowing down. The carrier group built around the USS Abraham Lincoln remained an important part of that effort, continuing to launch aircraft from the Arabian Sea. But military success has a human cost, and this war has already demanded one. According to U.S. Central Command and Defense Scoop, around 140 American troops had been wounded since the operation began. 8 of those injuries were severe. 7 American service members had been killed. 6 died on March 1 when an Iranian one-way attack drone struck a temporary operations center at a civilian port in Kuwait. Another American, Sergeant Benjamin Pennington, a 6-year-old from Glendale, Kentucky, died days later from injuries suffered in an Iranian attack on Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. Those names and numbers matter. These are not abstract losses in a distant conflict. These are real people, real families, and real consequences. And while military leaders talk about targets, sorties, and strategy, the families of those service members are living with the cost of every decision being made. Even after all of this, Iran continued to repeat its claim about the USS Abraham Lincoln. On March 13, according to Press TV and other reports, Iranian sources again claimed that the carrier had been struck by missiles and drones in the Sea of Oman, roughly 340 kilometers from Iran's maritime border. They said the ship had been rendered non-operational and forced to retreat at high speed along with its escort vessels. Again, the U.S. denied it. Central Command said clearly that the Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group continued to dominate from the sea and was still conducting operations. Independent reviews reached the same conclusion. Fact-checking site Factually said there was no verified evidence that the carrier had been hit. The claim existed, the denial existed, but no independent proof supported the Iranian version. That is what makes this story so important. It is not just about whether one ship was struck. It is about how modern war is fought in 2 arenas at once. On one side, missiles, drones, ships, and aircraft. On the other, perception, morale, and public belief. Tehran benefits if people believe it successfully hit a U.S. carrier. Washington benefits if it can prove the claim false and maintain credibility. And in the middle of those competing narratives is the public, trying to figure out what is real. The USS Abraham Lincoln remains one of the most powerful ships in the U.S. Navy, a floating city carrying thousands of sailors and dozens of aircraft. But power does not cancel danger. The war around it is real, the risks are real, and the propaganda is real too. And when we step back and look at the full picture, one final question remains. What should we actually believe right now? Here is the clearest answer based on all credible reporting available right now. There is no verified evidence that the USS Abraham Lincoln has been struck by Iranian missiles. U.S. Central Command has denied it directly and repeatedly. Independent fact-checkers, including PolitiFact, Lead Stories, and Factually, found no proof that the ship was hit. Viral videos used to support the claim were either inconsistent with the actual carrier or appeared to come from simulation footage. Photos released by the U.S. military showed the ship still operating in the Arabian Sea and still launching aircraft. If we stick only to what has been supported by credible evidence, the conclusion is straightforward. The carrier has not been confirmed hit. But that does not make the situation safe. The USS Abraham Lincoln remains in one of the most dangerous operating environments in the world. Real confrontations have happened around it. An Iranian drone was shot down by an F-35. A threatening Iranian vessel was struck by Hellfire missiles after approaching too closely. American forces are engaged in a major military campaign across the region, and the operation has already killed 7 U.S. service members and wounded about 140 more. So even though the specific missile claim appears false, the danger surrounding the carrier is not exaggerated. It is immediate and serious. That is what makes propaganda so powerful in wartime. It does not need to be fully true to have an effect. It only needs to move fast enough, look convincing enough, and reach enough people before the facts catch up. In the digital age, perception can shape public opinion almost as effectively as a battlefield victory. That is why Iran keeps repeating the story. A claim like this sends a message of strength to domestic audiences and supporters. At the same time, the United States keeps denying it because the credibility of American deterrence also matters. Neither side is speaking into a vacuum. Both are trying to control the narrative. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a hard but necessary standard. Trust verified reporting, not viral emotion. Trust confirmed evidence, not dramatic clips with no source. Trust facts that survive scrutiny. Because in moments like this, when the fog of war is thick and every side is pushing a message, truth becomes one of the first things at risk. The USS Abraham Lincoln is still operating. Operation Epic Fury is still ongoing. Tensions are still high. The information war is still raging alongside the real one. And that means this story is not over. It is still developing, and every new claim needs to be examined carefully before it is accepted. If you made it to the end, subscribe now, turn on the bell, and share this video with someone who wants facts instead of noise. Because in a war filled with propaganda, staying informed is just as important as staying alert.